Welcome to Wrangler Xtreme Bronx Chute Talk. I am down here in Chute, New South Wales, down at the Pierce family property with rodeo royalty, I must say. We've got Brad and Jim here, and this interview's definitely been a long time coming. We've wanted to sit down with you both and have a bit of a chat about the Pierce rodeo family history. I know there's a lot involved with not just you both, but also Jim, your father. So thank you for taking the time to have a chat to us today.
Thank you very much, Dallas. It's a pleasure to be on this, and look forward to the questions coming in and seeing if we can get a few answered for you.
Amazing. So, Jim, I might start with you. I know rodeo in your family and the Pierce family hasn't just started with you, but you with your father, Johnny. Can you tell me a little bit about Johnny? I know he was a very successful cowboy competing in the arena, but how did he first get started in rodeo?
Well, probably with the grandfather. He started a lot of rodeos for after the war benefit rodeos for the returned soldiers and that. And he started like putting bucking horses together and started a lot of the rodeos, like that's probably like Tumbarumba and Kyabram, Chute, or not Chute, like Cudgewell, Talangata and that. Like when they started putting bucking horses together, and there's always a few cowboys staying here, and Dad started riding there, and I just progressed from there, just mainly trying bucking horses out here.
Yeah, wow, that's super interesting. And I know he didn't just compete in bronc riding. Can you tell me what areas of the rodeo arena that he did compete in?
Just in those days, like everything. But the bronc riding was always a big paying one, so everybody wanted to be a bronc rider. But yeah, all the cowboys in that era were 5 event sort of men.
Yeah, okay. And I know Johnny won the ARRA bareback riding title in 1945 and the all-round title in 1946. Do you think the bareback was his main event, or was he a bit of a gun at everything?
I think saddle bronc riding was his main event. But like, yeah, he rode them all, and he rode bareback horses pretty well, I suppose, and he liked bulldogging.
Yeah, okay. And can you tell me a little bit about your memories of your father being such a successful cowboy?
I can remember as a kid him still judging a bit, and we've been breaking in and that, and I've seen him like riding young horses, and like in them days you'd get a lot of horses that'd be, they'd be 4 and 5 year old and never had a hand on them, and in 3 days you'd have them at work sort of thing. And I think that was a big grounding for me. Like he fell a tree over his shoulder and he couldn't get his left hand up about there to get on. So, yeah, I started being the jockey at a pretty young age, and some of them old horses, sometimes lunchtime they'd drop the nut and buck with you, or half opening a gate, so you got, I was pretty sticky.
You got a bit of practice in there.
Yeah, you did, and sometimes you didn't really need it, but it just happened, but...
So is that how you decided you wanted to be at the rough stock end of the arena? How you kind of got started with your father and that's what you enjoyed the most?
Oh, an uncle made me a rough stock cowboy. But he was going to make a bulldogger out of me when I was about 15, and we had a heap of adjustment cattle on, and they were about probably 18 months old, and short horn heifers with horns about that long, and we just got him in the corner, and he was half full of whiskey, and we were running him up the fence, and I was going to be the bulldogger. After that, I wasn't that keen on being a bulldogger. Riding bucking horses is a lot easier.
Oh, and talking about your early career, can you talk to me about what it was like to rodeo back then when you first started?
Well, when I first started, like, we never had. We used to use the committee gear, ARRA used to have a gear counsellor, and they'd send saddles and riggings and stuff around the rodeos. So for the first bit, I just used to get on in a committee saddle, and they weren't probably the flashiest saddle. Then I bought this old bronc riding saddle for $80, and I thought that was the Rolls Royce of bronc riding saddles, and it was after them old committee saddles, but.
So for those that don't know, what was the committee saddle?
It was it was the association saddle. I think they were old Robin Yates saddles, and some early saddles they sent over from the States and that when the sort of international saddle came in, and I'd never ridden an international saddle. I could ride good in a stock saddle and that, and it was completely different. And I'd done some pretty horrible rides early on.
And you talked about the ARRA, and I know your grandfather won a title in that. Can you tell us about what the ARRA was?
It was the association they started to bring in a set of uniform rules and uniform saddles and get a judges panel going and just get it from to try and sort of bring it in that you could make a living out of it. And when it first came in, I think the main aim was the bronc riding, or the buck jump as they used to call it. You'd had to pay 3 months working wages for a man on working on a station or working on a farm. So if you won a bronc ride, that was 3 months' wages.
Wow, you would have had to be pretty committed.
Well, those old fellas I take my hat off to, because even like in the early days, you'd bring your own bucking horse and your own saddle and that, and all of a sudden they started bringing in drawers and they brought in the little Davison Smith saddle, which wasn't a real big saddle, and it would have been tough. And a lot of them old fellas, they had to be hard men to like in the arena and out of the arena to get the whole show rolling.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about that early career of yours, did you just rodeo in this area or did you travel?
No, I started off in this area, and then when I got a licence I started travelling a bit, but before that, no, you just get to Tumbarumba, Chute and maybe Omeo or somewhere. But.
And what was the bucking stock like back then?
Oh, every committee had 2 or 3 good horses, and probably drawing one of them sometimes was like bloody winning, Tats Lotto or something. But there was a lot of ordinary horses and a lot of tryout horses, and and it's changed, like stock-wise, like the change in stock's just incredible to what it, and the same as the picking up. She's all changed.
Was a bit wild and western back then, picking up.
Yeah, well, I've seen at Tumbarumba, I've seen 21 pickup teams there, and if you went to a 2 rodeo committee meetings, you could pick up, or if you run a bucking horse, so you could borrow a horse the morning of the rodeo and be a pickup man.
Now, you touched on that some of the committees had 2 or 3 horses themselves. I know Tumbarumba Rodeo Club and Chute Rodeo Club both have their own bucking string now, and so does Omeo does have their own horses as well. But was that something, it was more common back then that each rodeo club had their own horses, or were there quite a number of stock contractors?
No, you had Gills and Bert Hall, your main stock contractors, and I think Gary started in, Cootamundra in 76, and then. But I reckon Gary really, he stepped it up. He was the first fella I seen that's positioned his pickup men, sort of took more care of his horses and put, Gary was a horseman, no 2 ways about it, and bucking horses were his passion.
Yeah, and tell me about rodeoing back then. Were you competing for much prize money, or what made you kind of get on the back of a good horse and go out? Or it might not have even been a good horse, you could be getting on anything. Or what made you really want to compete?
Yeah, I just always wanted to be a bronc rider. I remember as a little kid, you'd be sitting around and, there'd often be old cowboys at home and all they'd be talking about was bucking horses and bronc riding, and when Tom Willoughby rode the Black Fire or something. But, and you just wanted to be a bronc rider. I was always in trouble for bucking horses or getting caught bucking horses when you wasn't supposed to be or something.
And how do you think the rodeos have changed since then?
The biggest, the stock, I think, are a lot more consistent. Like especially the bulls. There's some fantastic bulls about, and I think there's Xtreme broncs and that. It's really sort of put horses back in the spotlight, and and just watching them when you take them 6 top horses out, it levels the playing field, and it's a bronc riding contest. It's what it should be, and then you got your better horses for the. Yeah, you ride one good and you're in the short go and you're on something that's going to buck.
Yeah.
I remember getting, 3 re-rides in the final of the Open Bronc Ride at Warwick, and it was the biggest rodeo in the country. And they used to pride themselves on their bucking horses.
So you think rodeo's really gone to a new level lately?
I think it has, yeah. Yeah, it definitely has.
Now, I wanted to touch on your titles. You were the 1976 NFR Bull Riding Champion, the 1977 NFR Average Champion, the Bronc Ride, and the 1989 APR Bronc Riding Champion. What buckle do you have there at the moment?
That's the 89 Bronc Riding buckle.
So would you say that was one of your career highlights, or what is a really memorable moment of your bronc riding and bull riding career?
Well, yeah, probably that, and to win either to win a title or win average at the finals. was a sort of big thing. Like sometimes you'd win state titles and that, but it was just whoever, might have been whoever drew best on the day. But to win a title over the 12 months, you had to be consistent, and to win at the finals, it was the top 15 and the best stock. So yeah, that was always a big thing.
And Brad, what were your first memories of knowing you had a really successful cowboy as a father?
Well, mostly probably around the chutes or at the bar or whatever, and hearing other guys talk about Dad was how I kind of got to realise that he was pretty good at what he done. But yeah, unfortunately I didn't really see a whole lot of him riding and whatnot, but you go and talk to people and you soon get filled in on what kind of cowboy he was and that sort of thing. So not a whole lot in the memory bank from that.
But I'm sure when you first getting started, Jim was a really big help in, getting you to where you are now.
Oh yeah, well as kids, we probably had to do a lot more, not only rodeo wise, but around the farm wise and whatnot, because Dad was hurt. Like I remember, getting on young horses and stuff, probably when we shouldn't have been. But I think that's sort of what makes you who you are of doing that. Like I fell off every horse on the place for probably 3 years, and probably my own fault that it happened, but that's how you learn. And I guess with Dad being hurt and whatnot, we had to do a lot of things that other kids didn't have to. But in saying that, it sort of made us step up, and it made us who we are, really.
So you're a multi-generational cowboy. What made you really want to follow in your grandfather and your father's footsteps?
I guess once you're bought into this industry, like it's something that it just flows on with you. That's all I've known since I was a kid. We played a little bit of football and done a little bit of other horse sports and that, but I think rodeo was always going to be what it was. Well, I do remember going to a rodeo and I was riding junior steers, and my older brother Jaden was getting on second divvy bulls, and I just remember them bulls running in the chutes and thinking, geez, I hate the day I turned 16. So I break out of the juniors, I have to get on these things. Like I did not want a bar of it. And then I guess once you get on a few and you get going, it just becomes what you do. And I don't know, it's just as Dad said before, like every time you're around people, that's all they talk around here is rodeo and that sort of thing. So that sort of gets ingrained into you from a very young age.
It's funny that you talk about not looking forward to being 16 and getting on those, but 2 years later you got a college scholarship to rodeo in Texas. What helped you make that decision to go over there and rodeo in America?
I never really thought about it too much, to tell you the truth. I got a phone call one day and from Greg Rhodes, the coach at Snyder, and it was a bit of a shock really, because I always kind of thought I would go over, but I didn't really plan anything. It sort of just happened, and then packed up just after my 18th birthday and headed out over there, and I really didn't know what I was getting into, or I probably didn't know as much about the States as what I should have before I went, but I just sort of loaded up and headed out.
And can you tell me a little bit about those 5 years when you were rodeoing in America and the difference rodeo has in America to what it is here?
Well, I guess it was the main difference. I like the professionalism and the money that it was over there. It's a it's a thing where you're kind of the guys I thought that were over there that are going good. They're celebrities. Like it's a pretty cool thing to be in around them, especially growing up. I knew a few guys, and then you get going and you're riding against them. It's a pretty weird feeling, but I guess I went over there to college, and I didn't pro rodeo over there for the first 3 months. I just poked around, done some open rodeos and got the feel of it, I guess, and then I went back over and bought my permit in 2006, I reckon, and it didn't take me very long. I filled my permit and then rodeoed on that, and then 2007 was my rookie year. I was fortunate enough to win the rookie all round and the rookie bull riding for the PRCA. Same thing, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just riding, so that sort of made it easier, I think. Once I worked out what I was doing, I never could win much.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to talk about those titles. It's actually a massive achievement to win something like that in the PRCA. We see Kai Hamilton had just achieved that in the bull riding as well, but to win the all-round is a incredible achievement. How do those titles compare to those on home soil?
Two completely different things, I guess. It was more a relief to win a title over here. I kind of knew that I wanted to win one, and I definitely put it towards my goals, but to win one, sort of knowing that Johnny was a Australian champion and Dad was an Australian champion, it sort of nearly falls that you should be, but you're not. So once you actually win one, it was kind of a relief, to tell you the truth. But going back to it was in the 2007, the PRCA, I had a pretty good year. I just missed out on making the NFR and whatnot, but I got hurt. I spent probably 6 months out. I come home for 3 months during that year and whatnot. It seemed every time I'd get going, I'd end up on the sidelines again. But no, that was like I said, I really didn't know what I was doing when I done it. You look at it now, and it is a pretty big feat to win those. But as I was winning them, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just having fun and rodeoing, and that's probably the best way to win stuff, I think.
Definitely. And, you're now predominantly a bronc rider, and you do a lot for Xtreme broncs and pick up riding as well. Talk to me about that decision to retire from bull riding. I know a lot of great bull riders do it because of the injuries and whatnot, but what was it for you to then take bronc riding full time?
Oh, I guess as you get older and whatnot, and you have a family and kids and whatever, it becomes it is a pretty dangerous sport and whatever, but I would get going riding bulls, and I felt like I was riding good at the end of it, but I would get hurt for no apparent reason. Like you'd pull groins and do stuff just, I guess, because of your age and how long you've been doing it and all the rest of that stuff. But I just found that I spent more time missing out rodeoing from riding bulls than what I was getting out of it. I could have kept going another few years, but I just kept, every 10 bulls or so, I'd end up out for 2 months or 3 months, and that was affecting your bronc riding and everything else. So it just come to a point where once I hung it up, I've never really felt the urge to get back on one. I still love it, still enjoy watching bull riding and whatever, but I've never really had the urge to get back on. So I guess it was the right decision at the time to do.
Definitely. And, you hold the record in the bronc riding in both the APRA and the ABCRA currently. You've got way too many titles to list right now. I'm not going to go through them, but what would you say the biggest highlight of your career was?
Probably in 2007, winning the PRCA all-round was not just the bull riding, but the all-round's a pretty cool thing, I think. To win to be an all-round cowboy that was a thing that I sort of prided myself on a lot more than just the bull riding and the bronc riding. Like if you did good in both, then you obviously you'd have a fair shot at winning the all-round or whatnot. So doing that, and probably winning the bull riding at Cheyenne was another thing. I sort of won it, and I didn't really realise what I was doing until after it had happened, and I probably should have soaked the moment in a little bit more, but that were probably two of my better wins going through it.
I think there's a little nugget of advice here as you talk. I'm hearing that, if you're out there having fun and having a good time and not overthinking things too much, then you can be successful in what you're doing.
Oh, dead right. And I think I found that out a lot more probably later on in my career, because I didn't realise what I was doing at the start, I guess. But now, if you put pressure on yourself to win and do stuff, I don't found it's ever really worked for me. But if you're out having fun with your mates and doing stuff and riding and everything's positive and good, 99% of the time you're going to go pretty good, and you won't even know you're doing it. So that's been a big thing for me. If you're having fun and doing stuff, you're going to come out on top.
Now you've got both Ryder and Katie rodeoing now. How does it feel to kind of watch them now be successful? They've both won their own buckles, and they're, only at the very, very, very beginning of their career, but you must be a pretty proud dad. Oh,
dead right. Yeah, sure. I get probably more nervous watching them than what I do riding myself. But to see the way they both go about what they're doing, they both, and like I said before, they both love it. They have fun. Ryder with his potty riding and steer riding and whatnot, like there's never been any pressure to get on or do anything. It's all been his own decision to do. So, but the same thing. It's if he's having fun, and obviously you got to do your homework and make sure it's right. But I can't see why both of them can't go on and do whatever they want to do. Really, but it is very proud to. Not only that, you see Katie out there and she sings the national anthem at rodeos and little things like that. You can't make memories like that. So it's pretty cool.
And Jim, you've had both your sons compete in the arena and now watching your grandkids as well. Can you tell me how that feels?
Oh, I'd be the proudest man in the world. Yeah, just to see them, and even at home, you see them, it'd be 6 months ago. There's was Brad, Tay and the kids, and they're bringing them over cows and calves in up, and all them cows, they just all walked up there, all mothered up, one in the lead, couple out the wing, and it's I thought, that's better than seeing 3 motorbikes and everything coming in full trot. But no, but it's great that they are outside and they are having a go and doing things, and they're always they've always got some mongrel pony they're on, and then I reckon that's how you learn to ride. If you're herding about having a bit of a fun in the paddock, and you get reading stock and you get your balance and all the rest of it, then that's how you do learn to ride.
So others might not be aware that Jaden Pearce, your son, has also competed in rodeo and has 3 young sons who may follow in the family's footsteps. Can you tell me about Jaden and how he competed?
Yeah, Jaden, he probably got the rough end of the stick as a kid, because he was sort of he was always getting on him first, and if something flipped over on top, it was always Jaden that was sort of under it. But Jaden rode broncs, pretty good, and was a handy bull rider, and only for injuries, I got no doubt Jaden would have had a pretty successful career as a bronc rider.
And I'm sure as a big brother, he would have helped you along the way.
Yeah, dead right. Even with that, as the older brother, younger brother sort of rivalry, I guess you'd call it, and it does happen don't get me wrong, you're rooting for each other to do good, but he pushed me along probably more than what he thinks, just trying to be better than him or get as good as him, because being a younger brother, you're always trying to, I sort of always did try to beat him, I guess, but he probably played a pretty big part early on with me and my riding that he probably doesn't even realise, of trying to be as good as what he was, or I was always trying to get to where he was at. Being the younger brother, it pushed me more along that way, yeah.
And talking about family, your 2 children, Ryder and Katie, they in their own right have won a fair bit already, and people might not be aware, but Davey Johnson, the iconic rodeo bull riding legend, is their grandfather, and Trish Johnston, their grandmother, all have their own Australian titles in their own right. Can you tell me how that is a pretty cool bit of family history? They're not just following in your footsteps and Jim's footsteps. And also, what have they won already? Well,
that's right. It is a cool thing to have grandparents on both sides, and great-grandparents in our case, that have won Australian titles and stuff like that. But they it's the same as us. They live it. They love their rodeo, and for these kids to have Tay, as a mum competing and doing stuff, and me competing, and then Trisha's still competing in barrel racing, and knowing what they know about it. It's a little bit like I was when I was a kid. Their kids would have obviously never seen Davey or anyone ride, but they sit there and hear stories about, the ride on Chainsaw, or, his 3 bareback riding titles, and stuff like this. And I think there's a fair bit of that flows through Katie in her confidence with Dave announcing and Taylor singing and that sort of stuff. It flows on to Katie and her confidence in the way she does stuff in and out of the arena. It's pretty full on, really. But no, the kids have both been lucky enough to be pretty successful early on, which is, it's pretty easy to keep Ryder grounded, because when we're practicing, it's only a matter of running in something that's a little bit tough, and you can shorten him up pretty quick. But that's not the way we want to do it. So the Ryder's won. He's been fortunate enough to win a few buckles in the barrel racing and the mini bull riding and whatnot. And Katie has won 3 buckles now. She actually beat Ryder in the local potty ride at Tumbarumba, which she's not very happy about. And she's won Lisa Coates Memorial Junior Bar Race at Tarcutta there for this is the second year now. So they're both going pretty well in what they're doing.
And I want to touch on that you have, 3 generations in your family have won Australian titles, and that's unheard of in Australian rodeo history. Does that put a little bit of more pressure on your kids, do you think, or Jaden's kids to follow in your footsteps?
I don't think it will. They're at the stage now where they're lucky enough, really, in my opinion, to call it what you want, but everywhere they look, they're around winners. Like, if it's not that, it's even my mother Wendy in the camp draft world. Like, she's sort of been pretty successful, and it's a good driving point for the kids as they grow up to know that it's really, it can be done. Or if you want to do it and succeed at it, like, there's no reason why you can't. And that's a pretty cool thing. Everywhere they look through their generations, there is winners, and if they want to do it, they most certainly can.
And they say if you want to be a winner, then you need to sit around winners. And Jim, having 3 generations win an Australian title in your family, that must be a pretty special thing. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Oh, it means a lot because, like, the rough stocks are pretty. Yeah, she's a pretty hard old game, and yeah, to get one each generation that has won a title, yeah, it is a big thing, and it's a lot harder than a lot of people just to win a title, but. When you get one each generation, that is pretty special under ride.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to go into the bucking horses side of things. You have your own bucking stock here on the property. They're just actually behind us now, a few of them. And Jim, your father, Johnny, actually took the first load of bucking horses over to Tasmania to their first rodeo, which I think is some really iconic family history you have. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, the old grandfather started putting horses together, and everything that went in a plough or pulled a cart or something had to buck. If it didn't buck, they got rid of it. And then he got all his mates for doing the same. And that was the first lot of sort of bucking horses in the district. They took horses to Kosciuszko, walked horses to Kosciuszko when Days had the chalet there for the first rodeo there. They'd walk them to Delangata and like Tumba and that. Kyabram, they used to put them on the railway at Cudgewell. They used to truck them. They'd send them on the railway, but they did take horses to Tasmania and that on the railway to Melbourne and then on the boat to Tassie.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Like bucking horses, pick-up horses and a crew of men sort of thing.
Yeah, right. And how are you both involved with the bucking horse side of things? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's the same thing. We've always had practice horses as kids growing up, like, and that's how it sort of starts, I guess. And then obviously Tumbarumba Rodeo's got their own string of horses, and I got involved with that a little bit. And then most of them are all that I deal with the Tumbarumba Rodeo horses, and then, we slowly just, it doesn't take very long and you end up getting a few more about you than what you realise at times. But I don't know, it's the same thing. It's some people, they love their camp draft horses, some people love their cutting horses, dressage horses, and for me it's always been bucking horses is all, like, I get a kick out of a good bucking horse. So that's where the interest come from, and I guess we're just starting now to breed a couple of our own and whatever. But as far as horses go, we've sort of always had a few around, and if someone had something to buck, they'd ring you up and say, well, do you want it? And you'd probably get on it and play around, and then if it was good, you'd keep it. But yeah, that's where it's sort of up to now. But a lot of credit goes to Tumbarumba for the horses that we play with now, and really the horses that we've got through the Tumbarumba Rodeo Committee for schools. We've been running schools there for probably 10 years now, and they're the perfect horse for running schools and that sort of thing. And it's a credit to everyone involved with that that's got a lot of cowboys going through them bucking horses, and a lot of guys that didn't have a chance if it wouldn't have been there. So that's the way I see it. Them practice horses and stuff like that, they're just as important for us as the open horses that we win money on, because without the practice horses and that stuff, we got no kids to get on our good ones. So it is that's a big thing for me is the practice horses and them horses that, you know, they probably get more trips than the good horses do, but they're the perfect scenario for someone to start out on, and that's what I'd try to have a lot of them sort of horses about.
Yeah, great. And Jim, I know you love breeding great horses, and you know a great horse when you see one. The breeding in bucking horses in the last, 10 to 20 years has really changed and really become a lot more, I guess, a lot more targeted. Can you talk to me about what you've seen and the change you've seen in terms of the calibre of horses and how it's evolved?
Horses have got a lot more consistent, and then they've got a lot bigger. Like, once all them contractors could go north and they'd pick up station horses and that, but yeah, they could go from 14.2 to 17 hand, and yeah, some horses you'd have to saddle a bit different and all that. But I was at Mara and I watched the Xtreme Bronx there. Every one of those horses, they were good, big, solid horses. You could get a hold of them, you could saddle them right. You didn't have to cheat, sort of deal to get a trip out of them. And I think just with the genetics about and that horse, like bucking horses, are only going to get better. And some of them horses that you used to get on, they were scattery and rapid and hard to keep up with. And yeah, and then probably a lot of people say, oh yeah, the horses will get too tough and that. But I don't think they will. I think them bigger horses are a lot better to ride and a lot easier to get going on. It's not much fun getting on something that's like a balloon that you've just let go and the wind's gone out of it and it's everywhere. At least they're good, big, solid horses, and most of them big horses are probably a little bit slower or tend to be a bit slower. So, I think it's great, and I reckon the bucking horse industry's never looked better, not in Australia.
Now, the horses, as you've said, Jim, are getting better as the years go on, and the breeding is becoming a lot more, the genetics and the breeding coming a lot more targeted. Do you think, and Brad, tell me what you think in terms of, as the horses get better, the cowboys are forced to step up and match those horses? Yeah,
that's right. I can sort of speak on my behalf there when COVID come out and a few injuries and whatever, and it took us, we weren't rodeoing for 12 months and the horses weren't getting bucked, and it's taken us a little while to get up and going. Well, it did me anyway, I know. And I think the horses are the same. They've actually back into their groove, and they're getting conditioned and they're carted, and it's all happening. So, yeah, no, it's definitely it. Like, I went to Barraba the other day, and there was probably 3 or 4 rides there that could have easily won at any stop along the way. And there was comments on a lot of from the crowd about how good the actual bronc riding was at the event. And I think the more it flows on like that, the better the horses are, the better the cowboys ride, and vice versa. The better the cowboys ride, the better the horses will buck for them. So...
Yeah, and Jim, tell me what you think about that and how you've watched both the, not just the horses get better, but the cowboys as well.
Well, I think there's three things you need to be, if you're going to be successful, like as a bronc rider. You've got to have the want and the ticker, but you've got to have the stock and you've got to have the competition. And if you're getting on bucking horses and you've got somebody that's pushing you a bit, yeah, you'll lift your game and you'll ride that bit better. And the way I see it, yeah, there's not 4 or 5 horses there to draw. There's 15 horses there, that you're going to get a check on. So all the ingredients are there to do it, and it'll happen.
Yeah, well, as we see, Xtreme Bronx has, I think, in my opinion, taking rodeo to a new level. And we have Xtreme Bronx coming up very shortly down here at the Man from Snowy River Festival. So this interview is very timely as we move into the Corryong Wrangler Xtreme Bronx. Jim, I know you've been involved with the Man from Snowy River since the very beginning. Can you tell me how you first got involved and how you've watched it evolve since then?
When they first started, there was a promoter by the name of Jonathan King. He sort of got the idea rolling, and I just had a meeting at the pub, and I finished up, with the supplying horses probably for the Brumby catch and the and lining horses up for the bronc ride part of it. And I've sort of done that till the boys sort of took over, and this year I took the packing on for something different. But the Xtreme Bronx at Corryong, it's going to be awesome. It's a perfect venue. It's got everything going for it. No, I reckon it'll be a top show.
Definitely. I know when a lot of people who have competed at Corryong in the past, when the rodeo's on there, they say the crowd is like no other and the atmosphere will be certainly electric. Brad, can you tell me, what does it mean to Xtreme Bronx to have the event coming down here to the Man from Snowy River?
Well, I guess moving forward to have the events at the right places, and I've obviously been to the rodeo there for a lot of years and whatnot, and you're right, the crowd there they'll cheer anything on, and which is good. But to have the Xtreme Bronx involved with the Man from Snowy River is only going to promote the Xtreme Bronx and the Man from Snowy River hand in hand of working together and hopefully making it bigger and better and keep moving forward with both events.
And just touching on Xtreme Bronx, and to wrap up, what are you hoping the future of Xtreme Bronx, but not just Xtreme Bronx, rodeo in Australia is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, hopefully, as it gets going, everyone should have a bit of a goal they work towards. But definitely the prize money that has already happened through the Xtreme Bronx, I believe, has flowed on into rodeo with committees putting up more money and stuff like that, which for us bronc riders is, in the last 2 years, the amount of money that can be won in Australia now has never been seen before. So that's a good thing. But just we just try and work on keeping it. The Xtreme Bronx was founded by the Cowboys for the Cowboys, so pretty much whatever the bronc riders want to do, if they want to ride for money and if they want to get on good horses, well, that's what we got to bring to them. So that's the way I see it, and I believe the rodeo industry as well benefits from what we're doing and what we're trying to push forward as a professional show that makes more money, good bucking horses, better promo, better coverage for rodeo. I can't see the sport going backwards in the next 4 or 5 years anyway. It's a pretty positive outlook on it.
And Jim, Ryder might be looking towards being a saddle bronc rider at a certain point in his life. What do you hope for it to look like by then?
Oh, I hope that if Ryder finishes up riding broncs, that he's getting on and riding for 20 grand a rodeo or something. That'd be great to see. And I think the way the Xtreme Bronx is going, and the stocks there's no reason why you won't get a lot of them young fellas from the States and that probably mightn't be good enough to win over there. But yeah, there's no reason they can't win here, and it's a big ground and tool for young fellas here to go to the States. If you're getting on them big strong horses to start with, you haven't got to go over there and adjust to learning to ride them bigger horses to start with, because you're getting on them here.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you both for taking the time to chat today, and yeah, we're really looking forward to Xtreme Bronx in Corryong.
Yeah. Thank you, Dallas.
Thank you.